So if you want to check out 6 key elements of that very cool solo by Steve Smith, stay tuned. Welcome. Today I want to talk about another one of my favorite drummers, Steve Smith. But before I get into it, please make sure to click the red subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you know every time I upload a new video. Steve Smith's been around since, I guess, the mid-70s after he graduated from Berklee College of Music in Boston. Funny thing there, this is lore at this point, he met a young Vinnie Colaiuta who was in his first year of Berklee, and Steve was in his third year of Berklee, and they actually became roommates and fast friends. Could you imagine those hangs? He studied with Alan Dawson and Gary Chafee. Like I say, after the mid-70s, 1976 to be specific, he won an audition with Jean-Luc Ponty on Jeff Berlin's recommendation. And I guess the rest is history after that, right? Played with Jean-Luc Ponty, got a gig with a rock band named Journey, as most of us know, where he was able to attain fame and fortune, and also a foothold in the music business that catapulted him into his jazz project called Vital Information. Or at least it was a fusion project. He's had other jazz projects too. Steve Smith is also a great educator and someone who never stops trying to learn new things, as we all should be like that. You know, since the 80s and through the 90s, he did a lot of work in the studios, like with artists such as Bryan Adams and Mariah Carey. And he's got a deep dive happening with Indian music as well, and created a whole other arm of his playing there. On today's video, I want to really hone in on a piece of music he did on a record called Fia Fiaga, I think that's how you pronounce it, from 1988, Vital Information, and the song's called The Perfect Date. Really cool, sort of a swing/funk tune. He goes back and forth between swing and funk, and there's this monstrous solo that I've been listening to for many, many years and decided to transcribe it and perform it for you all on this video. I'm also going to bring up 6 characteristics or elements of the solo that are really interesting and refer a lot of times to other musicians like Tony Williams. And there's a few concepts in there that I thought would be really great to hip you to and give you a direct example of how they were used in that solo. And Steve tears it up. It's a pretty tough solo, so make sure to download the transcription and the exercises. Okay, let's get to it. I'm going to call the first characteristic or musical element macro rhythmic displacement. Or let's call it phrase displacement. Because instead of taking a rhythm and shifting it over, let's say, a 16th note or an 8th note, and playing that same rhythm but displaced in the bar, we're taking a whole phrase and doing that. So you can either add or subtract rests in the bars outside of the phrase that'll cause it to shift. So listener hears the same phrase. It sounds very familiar, yet it's sort of offset, which creates a really cool feeling, and it causes tension for the listener as well, which is resolved once you play a downbeat or resolve it some other way. Usually a downbeat does the trick. Okay, so the first one I noticed is at bar 3 to 9, pretty much right off the top of the solo. And it comes in like gangbusters, you know? All right, so this is how it sounds well, first of all, I'm not going to play any of the examples at full speed. The tune is done to a click, by the way, at 120. So I'm bringing the tempo down to 90, just so it's easier to sort of see the sticking even when it's fast. And I'm also going to play it much slower as well. So here it is at full speed, the phrase in question. 1, 2, pretty interesting. The little phrase, it seems to move over by one beat. Now, I wrote this in cut time in 2/2, so just so it's easier to on the eyes, not so many streams of black ink, right? So it's written in 2, and it's moving over a quarter note. At least the first 3 times you hear it starts on B2, right? If you're thinking of 4/4, or the and of 2, if you're thinking of cut time. Then it goes to the downbeat, and then it comes over to beat 4, or the and of 2, if you're thinking cut time. And then it kind of does this thing where it goes back to starting on 2, and he does a run to end the phrase. It's pretty interesting. So I came up with this exercise that'll help you to get a feeling of that by first starting out on beat 1, then moving it over to beat 2, then to beat 3, and then finally to beat 4. Count out loud when you do this, whether it be in 4/4 or in cut time in 2/2, because you'll not only hear how the phrase changes its shape sonically, but it feels different because you're approaching it, from different angles or different parts of the beat and different parts of the bar. So it just feels different and helps you stay in a 4/4 4-bar phrase context. All right, so here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's how it sounds. Now, if you count out loud, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Right? It really feels good. And it really gives you an insight as to how to keep your place in a phrase, whether you're playing a fill, a long fill, or if you're in the middle of a solo. It helps you keep your place and feel confident that you won't have any trouble either hitting some kind of rhythmic figure that's coming in, or just marking the next phrase so the band knows where you are and where the music is. So here it is, half as fast. 1, 2, 1, and 2, and 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 1, and 2, and. Okay. So the next interesting element, number 2, is playing fills with a double stroke roll that is distributed between the hands and feet. Here is the fill in question, which occurs at bar 18 and 19 on the solo transcription. And it sounds like this. And slower. So it sort of zips by at the speed of light when you hear it in context, especially when it's up at 120. But the way to really think about that is to subdivide and think of the subdivision, not all the flying little small notes. Otherwise, it's very easy to get confused, fall out of time. So I put together some exercises. If you look on the sheet, the PDF, you have exercises A through D. And the trick with these is to count out loud. First, I'll do it slow. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1. So by thinking that way, it helps to keep everything much more settled and even. I remember when I was younger, I used to think about playing fast notes. You know, I'd say, okay, I'm going to play fast notes, like 30-second notes. The adrenaline would start pumping, and sure enough, I would probably rush. It was very frustrating. So I found that by thinking of the subdivision, by thinking half as fast as you're going to play, it helps to keep everything much more locked. Here it is, twice as fast. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 2 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1. Okay, so the next element, number 3, is the use of the blushta. I am always entertained by the onomatopoeia used by drummers to describe their stickings. But it sounds like that, blushta. Here is the segment that it occurs. It's at bar 23 and 24, as well as bars 35 and 37. Here's the first one. 1, 2, Okay, so Steve Smith actually described this in one of his videos called Standing on the Shoulders of Giants, where he examines the great playing of past drummers and sort of demonstrates how he uses a lot of those techniques. Here's a very direct Tony Williams reference in his use of the blushta here. He's putting the blushta on the triplet grid here first. So here's the sticking in triplets. Half as fast. Okay, and if you reverse them, they sound like this. When I say reverse, I mean like invert that sticking. It sounds like this. Half as fast. Now, the way I just played it is very, very rudimental and very straight. But you don't really play it like that. You kind of have to loosen it up and get the zhush of the blushta sound, the zhush part. Zhush. Right? I mean, that's how Steve Smith actually describes it. It's not quite as silly as I am, but he definitely makes a note of letting you know that it needs to be loose inside there to get the snares to do what they do. Okay, the second example is on the duple grid, and it sounds like this. 1, 2, Okay, so that sticking is this. 1, 2, Okay, you notice that it has a hibiola effect happening there when you do that, right? That's 3/2. That concept definitely is obvious in full frontal. And invert that sticking. 1, 2, Okay. Yeah, it's a very, very simple sticking, and it's incredibly effective. It really sounds full. It's kind of like smoke and mirrors in a weird way, you know? Like it sounds like you're playing really full doubles or something. It's really interesting. The faster you play it, the more it kind of comes together, like in that first example. You know what I mean? It really full. Okay, so the next section is actual rhythmic displacement. Not the phrase, just a rhythm. And the example of that is bar 48 and 49. Rhythmic displacement is to take a rhythm and slide it over to the right by, let's say, a 16th note or an 8th note. So in this case, he's playing triplets in this part of the solo, and kind of burning, by the way. And I'll play the segment first so you can see what I'm talking about. I'll play a lead up to it as well. 1, 2, All right, so that segment, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3. So just those two beats, 1, 2. That, he's taking that segment and shifting it over from the downbeat to the upbeat. And now, since we're thinking in triplets, the next time the segment starts is on the last triplet of 3, beat 3 if you're thinking of it in 4/4, or on 2 if you're thinking of it in cut time, right? 1, 2, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. Right there, he starts the next little sequence. So now it's already displaced. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3. Right? So when you start it on the upbeat or the last triplet of 3, that whole segment now is shifted over. So the next time you hear that main accent, it's on beat 1. Then he starts again with the ride cymbal playing on the second triplet of 2 of the next bar if you're thinking in 4/4, right? So if you start at the beginning of the second bar, 1, 2, 3, right? The second triplet of 2, and then he sort of gets out of the rhythm and just plays triplets to bring you to the next downbeat. I'll start from the second bar. 1, 2, 3, like that. Very clever. A simpler version of that is you're just playing it in duple time. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a much more direct example of rhythmic displacement. Okay, moving on to element number 5, single strokes between our hands and foot, kick drum to be specific. Now this is definitely something that Steve Smith was influenced by Tony Williams in that he uses this quite often. The only difference is with this one, it's sort of inverted. He approaches it backwards from at least how I often use it and how I think most people use it, in that the kick drum starts on the downbeat, which kind of offsets things a little bit in your mind. So it does take a little bit to get used to. All right, this is what it sounds like. This is at bar 65 through 69. 1, 2, 3. So yeah, you'd have to get used to that. Now, if you click at the link up above me here, it'll take you to a video we did on Ralph Humphrey. He used this technique in a song called St. Alfonso's Pancake Breakfast. And on that video, or at least in the descriptions of that video, you'll be able to find a PDF of some exercises that gives you a whole rundown on how to sort of work up this concept. All right, moving on to element number 6. And that is embellished hemiola. Now, hemiola is used quite a bit in this solo, but this one really stands out to me. It's right at the real peak of the solo near the end. Hemiola basically is 3/4 against 4, 3 in duple time. You're grouping accents in threes, or three note groupings, and it's placed in a duple framework. So that causes that 3-note grouping to go over the bar line rhythmically. So let me play it slowly first. 1, 2, 3. Right, so you see how it goes over the bar line there. I'll do it again. This time I'll count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 4, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, you need to count through these. Get used to counting through these. That's the only way, at least the only way that I can keep my place. There are some superhumans out there who don't count, and I know, hats off to you. I have to keep track, and I'd advise you to. Here it is faster. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said at the beginning of this, D. Smith is definitely one of my favorites, and he is someone who has been able to transcend the rock world into the jazz world and back. And also, he's a great educator, someone who's very inspiring and inspires me to keep pushing myself to learn new things. I've been listening to this song and this record for decades now, and I've always wanted to have a much deeper dive, so I did that, and I'm glad I was able to pass it on to you. So if you like this video, please click like and share it. Go to aubreydrumlessons.com for more drumming info and to get in touch with me about Skype lessons. In our lockdown situation, I have been doing more online lessons, and it's been a riot. Also, I'm on Instagram, so you can catch me there. Otherwise, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching my video. Really glad you did that. Subscribe and click here if you want more performance and lesson videos.